Good afternoon, everyone. This is Kathy Adamick with CQL, and welcome to our fourth webinar in the decision-making series regarding the personal outcome measures. We're happy to have you with us this afternoon. Just a few little housekeeping things. One is please type any questions or comments in the question box, and I'll be monitoring those, and be sure to share those with Jill and with the rest of everyone else. The recording and slides will be made available to you within about a week. People who have signed up will get an email. Otherwise, they'll be posted on our website. We do keep records of people who have attended the webinar, and they can, you can, I'm sorry. We do keep records of people who have attended our webinars if you are the person who signed up. But if you're in a room full of people, we don't know you're there. So the only records we have are the people who have signed up and attended. So thank you very much. And with that, Jill.
Good morning. Oh, I'm sorry, it's afternoon. I don't know where you all are. Welcome to the fourth session with our interview with Lennon. And we will be starting, and there will be some polls for those of you that have not been involved in this before. Just another couple housekeeping. We will be looking at both the outcome and support for your decision makings, and I will reiterate this as we get there. Other than that, I think if you haven't been on the other three first sessions, you can find those on our website. If you want to do that, there are 6 of these, so 4th out of the 6th, and we'll begin now. So the 4 areas, that's CQL's vision of world of dignity, opportunity, and community for all people. And we're dedicated to the definition, measurement, and improvement of personal quality of life. So with this personal outcome measures webinar, we're hoping to answer some general questions that you might have. Of course, it is a webinar and it is a 1 hour, and we have put as much information as we deemed that would help you be able to make your decisions, whether the outcome and support are present. With that being said, we will begin. We'll be looking at outcomes 12, 13, 14, and 15, natural supports, friendship, intimate relationships, and sharing personal information. And before we begin, just to remember that 12, 13, and 14 are type and frequency outcomes. And so if you have your manual handy, you'll be able to look at those, the decision making as we go forward.
Jill, before we move on, it appears that a few people are having difficulty with the volume. So could you be sure and speak loudly into the mic?
I will do so.
And we'll hope
it means you have to see me a little closer.
And hopefully that will help. Please let us know if it does not help.
Yes, I will use my training voice.
Thank you, Jill.
Yes, yes. So just to meet Lennon, this is kind of just an outline of Lennon that we met on the first time. That Lennon is 31 years old. She lives in her own apartment, works at Pizza Hut, likes to shop a lot. Her favorite things are shoes, bohemian clothing and decorations, hosting dinner parties, and baking bread. Her interests include flower gardening, acting, and photography, although she's not really into any of those right now, but those are things that she's kind of interested in. She is not married, has no children, but has twin nieces, Ashley and Taylor. Again, as I go through this, I will be reading this to you, reading each of the slides to you so that we make sure that everyone is reading at the same rate and make sure that everyone hears the same information. These are the results from the first 11 outcomes, I'm sorry, 10, because we will put respect, as you see at the bottom there, it's to be determined. And that is because during a personal outcome measures interview or conversation is that we kind of wait until the end of those, of the entire interview to kind of go back and figure out those small and big respect issues for the person. And so as you can see, this is where we are so far on these first 7. And then the next slide will show you where we were last time, the results of the last one. So for environments, integration, interaction, and participation. Knowing again that interact and participate are 2 of the type and frequency outcomes also. So we're going to jump right into connected to natural support networks. And speaking of Lennon does not speak with family members, with members of her family at this time. In the past, she has received mail from family members, but does not open them without staff due to her choice, as we'll say in the next sentence, which is that she asks staff, preferably Sharon, who is her program manager, to help her when she opens her mail, because she receives some mail at times from her family, and she is working on separating junk mail from bills and those which might be from family. To talk about Ashley and Taylor are her twin nieces. She has stated that she would like to have a relationship with those 2, but she does not have a way to contact them right now and does not want other family members to be involved in that or to know about her interest in a relationship with them. Sharon has offered to help Lennon contact both Ashley and Taylor. Lennon said that she will let Sharon know when she is ready. She said it is not a priority of hers right now, and Sharon will bring up her willingness to help at different times and in different ways, either by meetings or conversations. They have a good relationship, and so they talk about that and the like. They probably talk about it 3 to 4 times a year for sure at her quarterly meetings, but neither Sharon or Lennon really know how often they talk about it. Lennon says that is enough right now and doesn't want anyone else to do anything about her family at this time. Her other relationships, Sharon, who she trusts and prefers, and Sharon helps her sort through her mail and talk about her relationship with her family. At work, Lennon seeks out Emily, who is a co-worker, who helps her when she has questions about work. Staff say, excuse me, that they tell Lennon about events in the neighborhood, adult education programs, parks and recreation, to encourage her to meet other people. We added the guardianship, We added the guardianship because of that family member and natural supports, that one of her family members now serves as her guardian. She would like Sharon, her program manager, to be her guardian, but she does understand that she can't have someone that works for her serve as her guardian. Although she does talk with Sharon about those personal things. The agency is assisting Lennon and trying to help her identify a new or different guardian. She said that she does not want a stranger, someone she doesn't know, such as an organization that might help with guardianships. And There doesn't seem to be a lot of information about whether she has identified if she needs or wants a guardian. She just knows that she's had one for a long time. Sharon has talked with Lennon about joining a church, although at this point in the past, you will have noticed that Lennon chooses not to attend church. And they have also talked to her about joining an advocacy group. So we know that it's just a little bit of information, but based on that information gathered from talking with Lennon and the follow-up, as I said earlier, we're going to talk about the personal outcome questions, and then I would like you to just write down whether you have decided that that outcome is present for her, but we will talk about the supports as well before we do the polls. So for the decision making, does Lennon have a natural support network? If the answer to 12.1 is yes, does Lennon have enough contact with the people in her natural support network? If the answers to 1 and 2 is yes, the outcome is present. If the person does not have that network and the answer to 1 is no, is it due to personal choice, informed personal choice? If due to informed personal choice, the outcome is present. So if you will just take a couple additional considerations, natural supports are typically people who have a lasting commitment or connection to each person and not a casual support by a neighbor or coworker. If the extent and frequency is decided by Lennon in conjunction with those people, then the outcome is present. If Lennon has no natural support network with which to be connected and does not desire a relationship, then the outcome is also present. Natural supports for some people may be related to spirituality. So with those additional questions and considerations, and if you will just jot down whether or not your decision is that she does indeed have that it is present, that she has it, or not present, we will go on to the support, and then we will poll. So for the support questions, based again upon the information that you've received, has Lennon's natural support network been identified by the organization? Does the organization know the status of that relationship for Lennon? Does the organization provide for Lennon's relationships within the network if needed and requested? And does the organization recognize and promote opportunities for Lennon to develop natural support networks? Again, for this webinar, you will not need to decide between any of the 3 additional no's of developing or aware but no plans or not in place. It will be, the poll will either be it is present or not present at this moment. So if you would respond to the poll, please. Is the outcome to be connected to natural support networks present for Lennon? It is a type and frequency. And are the supports to be connected for Lennon to natural supports present?
So I stopped the poll. About 80 people voted out of 120, I believe, just for those of you that are much more interested in stats. So for the outcome, Jill, most people, 64%, thought the outcome was present. 36% said no, it was not. For the supports, 79% said that the supports were present, and 17% said no, they were not.
Okay, as we were looking at this, the decision is that the outcome is not present for Lennon because of the twin nieces. Now, we know that she said it's not a priority right now, but that she would like to be able to contact them and just hasn't figured out her own way of deciding how she wants that to be done, but that she does want that relationship. And so the outcome is not present for her at this time. The type and frequency is that she would like that. For the supports, it is also not present, and that is due to the last question when we look at those things. Is there anything else? Is there anything that the organization could be doing to help identify additional or outside natural supports for her that might take the place of some of those other things? Certainly when we're looking for that guardianship and is there someone else in her life that she would be considering a family that's outside of blood family? And so we're still looking for a little more robust sort of information about that. We would field questions at this point.
So, Jill, the first question is to please provide some clarification. Is her choice and not being a priority at the moment to contact her nieces, is that impacting, why would that not impact the decision?
Well, because she wants to do it. She's just not, there's not a clear-cut path. There doesn't seem to be any sort of way outside of contacting that family that she has identified as ways online or and since she said she would like to be able to contact them, we would consider that she wants something more and that it is not enough at this point.
And somebody is asking, well, what about mail? Could she write letters? And I don't know if that means, could she write letters to her nieces? Is that an option? And what do you say, Jill?
Well, one of the things is that she doesn't have their contact information, and the letters from her family in some of the past sort of areas of Lennon's life is that when she's contacted by her family, there's been some exploitation of them asking for money in those instances. And so that's why she's asking for assistance in any contact she has through letters. And again, she doesn't want her family to be involved, and so we don't have that avenue yet to find contact information for them. It's a good question, though.
Okay. The next question is, so could you talk a little bit more about, does she have a natural support network at this time?
And that's another question, is that it doesn't appear that she does. So one of those questions is, does she have that? She has no contact with them, and there doesn't seem to be anyone outside of family that she considers a natural support network at this time. Well, Sharon, she sees that again, that is paid support.
Okay.
And it's not outside of paid support.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So another person, says, I thought her choice of contact was via mail. If she is receiving mail from her family, there is a return address and she can then use that information to write back.
Well, it hasn't. It was not identified that that's her only way, and she is not accepting mail from family members at this time. because of the issue of them requesting money and other things from her.
If I might add, Jill, it's also fairly vague about it's not all of her family members. It's some of her family members who have taken advantage of her and will send her letters asking for money. The nieces may or may not live with those people that do that.
Right. Right. We don't know that.
And so there may or may not be a return address. Okay. All right. I think that covers the questions. So should we move on?
I believe so. If there are no more questions, there'll be an opportunity, hopefully at the end, for if you've thought of something else. So we talked with Lennon about her friends, and she identified many people as her friends: Julie, Paul, Christy, Anna, Shirley, Joey, Rachel, Maggie, and a number of other people. She has known them, many of them, for a very long time. She said she had enough friends, and her best friend forever is Julie. She talks on the phone with her friends quite often. They use FaceTime to talk with each other. Lennon can make three-way calls on her phone, and they sometimes do have group calls, so they get together that way. They also text each other. They sometimes go out together, some of her friends. Usually it's an agency-sponsored event, and that agency-sponsored event is a sponsored event that, even though we will find that some of her friends do not belong to the same service agency as she does, or employs the same service agency, that there is an open invitation, and so she invites her friends to those sponsored events. Sometimes it's things in their community. However, Lennon cannot go with her friends, any of her friends, without staff, because her friends have some restrictions about being out into the community without them. So there's always a staff person with them. Lennon stated that she did not think it's right, that she thought that she should be able to do things that she wants to with her friends without staff being along. She wants to do that. She said that Julie, who is her best friend, has a job and where she works independently without staff supervision. Neither Julie or Lennon understand why Julie must have staff with her when she goes out with Lennon, when she can be alone at work for those periods of time. Lennon has talked with her staff about this concern and this issue and this want and desire many times. Lennon has also offered solutions. She and Julie have talked about it, suggesting that she and Julie, can call and tell the staff where they're going, checking in as often as they would want, or to get that exemption for Julie to be with Lennon for a period of time, and also with some of her other friends. Those of you that don't know what an exemption is, it's just that. It's like they could exempt from a kind of line of sight restriction for periods of time if the other agencies deems that acceptable. Sharon said they are aware of Lennon's concerns. They have told Lennon, the organization has told Lennon that they've spoken to Julie's service providers and her other friends, because Lennon shares with them. And Sharon said that she can't do anything about the rules other agencies have concerning her friends. There's been no meeting with Lennon other than the informal, and there's no plan on how to resolve this issues with Lennon. So she just kind of feels like, I don't know how to fix it. They suggest maybe she should invite someone from work to do things, or go to events to meet other people and make kind of new friends. So the outcome questions, we will do this the same. If you will think about what you have read and make a predetermination on this and determine if, does Lennon have friends? Is she satisfied with the number of friends she has? And is she satisfied with the amount of contact she has with those friends? If the answers to all three of those questions are yes, the outcome is present. If the person has no friends and it's due to informed personal choice, then the outcome can also be present. The additional, as you're making your decision, is that if the person has no prior experience with friendships or has not expressed a clear choice in making friendships, then support and opportunity are provided in order for the individualized supports to be present. Friends are people apart from family members and staff. So if you will think and jot down, for Lennon, is her outcome to have friends, present or not present? We will continue with the support questions. A, does the organization know Lennon's preferences and need for friends? And are supports provided to assist Lennon with developing, maintaining, and enhancing friendships if needed? Based on those answers, are individual supports in place that facilitate this outcome for Lennon? Again, the poll will be yes and no for both outcome and support.
So Jill, about 90% of the people on the call voted. And we have said that the outcome for people having friends present is it present? 33% say yes, 67% say no. In terms of supports, are the individualized supports present? 23% say yes, 77% say no.
According to what we have, the outcome is not present for Lennon because of the type and frequency. She said she had enough, but the type of interactions and the type of activities that she would like to do with her friends is not present for her as a type and frequency. The supports for Lennon to have friends, the support is not present either. There needs to be some more creative ways, talking to Lennon, having a meeting and being able to present those things and coming up with a plan that might work for them to have some time alone with each other.
Okay, we have questions.
Yes.
I'm sorry. So the first one is, which decision-making question would be answered no for friends?
It is a...
So the first one was, does she have friends?
Yes.
And the
And
next
that
one,
answer is yes.
and then the next one is, she satisfied with the number of friends that she has?
And she stated yes, she has enough.
And is she satisfied with the amount of contact that she has?
And the answer to that is no. She wants additional contact by herself with her friends out and about.
So I'm going to go back to that slide.
Okay.
So I have to stop the share results and go back a little bit. All right.
So for number 3, she is not satisfied with the amount of contact she has with her friends.
Right.
So the answers have to be yes to all 3. It is not due to personal choice that she cannot have the amount of contact with her friends. Even though they talk and they text and all of those things, it is not what she wants.
So the second part of the question is, or the statement is the decision-making questions don't address type, but simply amount.
Okay, well, the amount of contact is not either there because she's not seeing them face to face, and that contact is not enough because she wants more contact with her friends outside of having staff there.
And so then the next question kind of in follow-up is it because she wants to be with her friends unsupervised from their support staff?
Yes.
Right, that's certainly
and certainly if I'm sorry, Kathy, for interrupting, but the contact with the friends is also that there are times when she cannot go out with her friends because of the staff shortages, and there's not a staff to take her friends with her.
Okay, so and Jill, that brings us back to kind of the last month's session when we talked about community, and we talked about some of these same kinds of issues that she wasn't able to do the things that she wanted in the community with her friends. So how, you know, it's kind of both of those things impact both of these outcomes. Could you talk about that a little bit?
Yes, in I can't remember which one it was, but it's with the interacting in the community and participating in the community. It was not present because of what I just said. Is that some of her friends, who are the friends that she has identified as wanting to be with, although Lennon does not have a line of sight restriction or any restrictions on spending time in her community by herself, she wanted to go and do things. She didn't want to go and do those things by herself, but rather with her friends. And so there were times that, again, that there were not enough staff for her friends' restrictions to allow them to go together with a staff. And so that was part of that community participation.
Okay, we have two more questions, but they're back on natural support. Would you like to talk about them now or wait till the end?
If it's okay, can we wait till the end? I would appreciate that.
Sure.
Any other questions about the friends? Okay. We will go on to intimate relationships. So intimate relationships. We talk about those intimate relationships, and of course what we're talking about are those people that are nearest and dearest, and who we share with, and who we have any sort of relationship, social, emotional, work, spiritual, those kind of relationships. When we spoke with Lennon about that, she said that she has a new relationship. She likes this person very much. She wasn't really open to talking about it very much. She said that she and this person aren't ready for anyone to know about that relationship as of this time, because it's pretty new and it's pretty personal. So Lennon asked that we, as the interviewees having the conversation, keep this information private. Of course, during any conversation, we say if there's any information you do not want shared, but we talk about the information private and not tell her staff. We did not share this with her staff, and so you will see with the follow-up that we talk about, just what they know about relationships at this point. She said she wants to see this person more often and without staff present, which kind of overrides those sort of things. So some of those areas. In the follow-up with Sharon said that Lennon is not interested in having a boyfriend, and that staff talk to her about it often. Is there something you want? Is there a relationship you want? When Lennon goes to agency-sponsored events, she spends most of her time with her current friends. Again, they're invited from everywhere, and so she gets to see her friends then. She knows Lennon would like to spend more time with her friends without staff, but the best they can do is to take her to those events when her friends will be present. They said there is nothing that they can do because her friends' restrictions have been approved by the other agency's Human Rights Committee. So again, that's been kind of discussed with her friends' respective providers, and they have said, well, it's been approved by the Human Rights Committee for those line of sight, so that's what it is. So for her intimate relationships, does Lennon have intimate relationships? If yes, is she satisfied with the type and scope of that relationship? If the answers to 1 and 2 are yes, the outcome is present. And if 1 is no, is it due to informed personal choice? At which point, if it is, then the outcome could be present also. So again, the additional considerations, involvement and closeness of family may meet those needs. Family relationships, and we know that Lennon is not asking for that right now, but going beyond the typical family contact and interaction, showing emotional closeness and personal reliance, and result in a positive outcome for Lennon. Expression of spirituality may meet some of her intimacy needs. And if the person has not indicated a desire, including behavioral and verbal, and if the person's preferences are known, the supports are available, then the outcome is present. So we will go to the poll. So do any of those, I'm sorry, Kathy, will you go back for just a moment? To the last slide. So if these additional considerations, again, do not meet those needs for her, we would look forward for that. So again, if you will just jot down if Lennon's outcome in intimate relationships is present for your predetermination. And then again, if you will look at the support questions, does the organization know and understand Lennon's preferences? Have they assisted her to explore and evaluate experiences to make informed choices? Does the organization provide support for Lennon to pursue, form, and maintain those? And has the organization addressed any barriers to the person having those? Based on those questions, are supports in place and facilitate the outcome?
We have made decisions, and most people, 77%, say that the outcome for Lennon's having intimate relationships is not present. 23% say yes. In terms of support, 19% say yes, the supports are present. 81% say no, they're not present.
And the answers are that the intimate relationship is not present for Lennon at this time because there is someone that she's indicating she likes, and she said she wanted to see this person more often and without staff, so type and scope. For the supports, because Lennon specifically asked us not to talk to staff about it at this time, the support is really hard to be present, and they're doing a little bit of things, talking to her about some things, but they really don't know at this time.
Okay, so we had a question come in right before we shared the results. And so this person is just curious. During the interview process, Jill, was it explored whether the relationship with her BFF met Lennon's definition of intimate relationships?
Well, she has the BFF, but she indicated whomever this person is that she would like to get to know better would be, that specific question was not asked. But she did indicate that whomever that person is she wants more of. So even if it was her BFF, she would want more of some relationship with someone, indicating that was more, that was a relationship that she wanted.
Okay, so then the next wanted to know, so if Lennon's not sharing information with her staff, and so she specifically said don't tell them about this other person that she barely told us about, how was the support not there?
Simply because they did not know. It's not a good or bad thing, it just is what it is, until Lennon is going to be sharing that there's some barriers to that. And for the snapshot at that point, since she asked specifically and it was so new, they just don't know. It's not a good or bad thing. It just simply is what it is at that time, at that very moment. So it doesn't mean that they're bad by not knowing it. It just means that Lennon hasn't decided to share that yet.
Okay.
She's a relatively private person, if you haven't gathered that over the last 3 sessions.
Okay. And it also, you know, and again, you're right, Jill, it's not a judgment on whether or not the supports are there. You know, you're right, they can't be supporting her if she doesn't know, if they don't know with this particular relationship. But are they doing, looking at other things and the other barriers that exist to relationship building? Are they really working on barriers that will lead her to having more close, intimate relationships? So,
any other questions?
Yes, there are. This one wants to know, this next person wants to know the voting numbers are percentage stats. And so there are about 130 people on the call. I think before I said 120. It is possible that people answer one question and not another. So there's about 80 people who answered the questions. And then the next one is, was there any discussion in the interview process that this relationship that Lennon is keeping secret from her supports could be with someone who is taking advantage of her?
You know, that's a really good question. It was not discussed in those terms. It seemed to be someone. It seemed. I guess I can't answer that. It's certainly not someone outside of her realm of friends that she has now. It did not appear that it was. She was saying she wants to be with these friends, and there were no new ones that she brought up. But I can't answer that. It would have been a good question. It would have been a good follow-up.
It is an excellent question.
Yeah, if that person is within her realm of friends, she just really didn't want to talk about it. So you know, she was just really kind of hesitant for that. But it was not asked specifically, but would have been a really good follow-up. I just didn't want to dig too much. It just, you know, she was really wanted to be pretty quiet about it. So, but keeping an eye on that is a good idea.
So Jill, if you were going to ask questions about that, can you think of anything, any way that you might ask that?
Gosh, you know, you just want to be really, really respectful of it, and it, you know, it might be a follow-up. Is it, you know, could you at least tell me if it's someone within your current group of friends? That might be one way, or just do you
I
have?
guess, right. And I know I put you on the spot, Jill, by asking that question. You know, some of the things that pop into my head are things like I might have gone back to think about the questions and the way I asked the questions around abuse and neglect, and her understanding of abuse and neglect and exploitation, whether she knew what to do if those things were happening to her. So there are other factors, I think, that might also be considered.
Yeah, without trying to drill down who the person is, you know, when you guys are going out, do you pay for your own stuff at this time? You know, are you, you know, going out to the movies? I
think,
yeah.
and there's somebody suggested, you know, maybe even just asking, do you feel safe in this relationship?
Oh yeah, and talk about those safety, because she's been scared by giving too much information to certain other people. We don't really know who this person is, and if it is outside of outside of agency, just outside of agency.
Right.
That's a really good question.
So
I would only, I'm sorry, I would only suggest that we try to make the questions, and if anybody else has a question that they use, that would be great, but we want to be really careful of the respect of not trying to figure out who that person is, since she didn't want to tell us. So we just want to be really concerned about that for her. She's already told us she doesn't want to tell us once. We hate to kind of press her into kind of telling us.
Right.
So if anybody else has a question that they think of, you know, bring it on.
All right, so we're getting short of time. There is one more question on this, and before we go on, if a person says that they want an intimate relationship someday, but they do not indicate an interest in receiving support for that or specific action to that end right now, does that mean the outcome is not present?
Not necessarily. We would need more information on that, but generally, if it is a type of frequency, so we would say it might be that it's informed personal choice, depending on the history of that. It might be that they've had one and they're not ready for a new one now, and so we would want to talk to them a little bit. You know, is it like next month, or is it, you know, I want to get my stuff together, I want to earn a little bit more money, I want, as anyone would kind of, it's like, you know, right now I just need a break and I don't want to do that. So there would be a lot more questions. But it's possible that it could be there because of informed choice. And if staff knew that, it could be there because of informed choice.
Thank you. Okay.
We'll move on to personal information. And this is some historical things also that have been said before, but it's about, when we talked about representative payee, it's about that personal information. So we've tried to bring in some of that historical things. So some of you may have heard this before and some may not. The agency serves as Lennon's representative payee. She has a trust fund that was set up by her parents, and it is managed by an attorney hired by her parents. She does not know if her parents are provided with information about her trust fund. She said she doesn't know what it means to have that, but she does know that she can have money whenever she needs or wants by asking staff for money. There was no in education about financial situation, and historically that was because the guardianship issue had taken priority for both she and the organization. A family member serves as her plenary guardian. Lennon understands that her guardian, that family member, has control of many things, and she said that they can make me do things I don't want to do, such as deciding where she lives, if she marries, and where she works. She has not seen the legal papers. Her guardian does sign papers for her annual meeting. Lennon does also sign those. She knows the agency routinely sends information to the guardian, but she doesn't exactly know what or when they do that, except for the annual meeting. She has a record, her own record in her apartment that is locked with her important papers that she's identified. She has a key and staff do not. She said she doesn't know what records the agency keeps, paper or electronic, the electronic, of course, in the computer. She said she knows that staff writes notes in the computer about her, but she has not seen those, is not sure who reads them or how to gain access to those. Not something that's unusual as people move over to electronics. However, she doesn't want any information shared with her family. And just historically, again, remember that Lennon shares some personal information with relatives, strangers, not relatives that are strangers, but strangers on the street. She told a clerk at Walgreens about her family one time. She also shared her address and phone number with a gentleman or a man, and then who had called her frequently and stopped by one night. She said that he had scared her at that. She did not open the door, but that made her nervous. Staff talked to her about the consequences about sharing too much information on an ongoing basis. In the conversation for the follow-up, Sharon said, "We read everything to and with Lennon when we ask her to sign anything. We explained to Lennon that certain information must be shared with her guardian and that the guardian must sign other required documents. We know she does not like that arrangement, and we are trying to identify a different guardian for Lennon." So does Lennon know what personal information the provider has collected about them, and what information is she most concerned about protecting? And are her desires about sharing of information respected? Is personal information shared with others only at the request of or the consent of the person or his or her legally authorized representative? The answers to 1, 3, and 4 must be yes for the outcome to be present. The sharing additionally of information through both written and verbal means is considered in determining whether the outcome is present. If the person requires assistance to understand that and adequate supports are in place, then the outcome could be present. So if you will make your decision on whether Lennon decides when she shares personal information for the outcome, jot that down, and we will go to the support. Does the organization know Lennon's preferences regarding her information? Do they obtain consent or that of the legally authorized representative prior to the release of any personal information? Are procedures implemented to respect her wishes about the sharing of information? If you make a decision, yes or no on that.
So 77 of 129 people have voted. Uh, 10% said the outcome is not present. 90% said 10% said the outcome is present. 90% said no, it's not. In terms of support, 17% say yes, the supports are present, and 83% say no, they are not.
And that is what CQL has decided on this one also, with the information. There was a lot of information, and because of that guardianship and how we can do that, and we know the legal sort of things about it and all those things, but and the bottom line is she doesn't want that, and she wants somebody else to be assisting if needed. And so the answers are, it is not present for the outcome, and it is not present for the support. Questions?
So it is a 201, and there are no questions about this one so far. I don't know if you want to try to answer the other two questions quickly.
If those people would like to stay on, we do have a few minutes. We can try and go back to the connected to the natural supports. For those of you that are going away, we do have 2 more sessions coming up in August and September that will finish it out, remembering that respect we will use at the very end to gather all of those. We hope to see you registered, and if people would like to stay on for the other 2 questions, we can certainly do that.
Okay, so can you clarify under supports, is it because of 12D that the organization is not promoting opportunities for natural supports for guardians or natural supports itself?
Or guardians, yes, they are not pursuing those other ones. The guardianship is certainly part of it, but we're looking for those other sort of things. Are there other people within her lives that might become that natural support? And it could be her best friend, again, or someone else, or those families, or, you know, we weren't exactly clear if she wanted something outside of that family relationship with Taylor and Ashley.
Okay, and then the next is, questions like this concern me because we wind up getting it wrong during our recertification. And if we lose points, we risk not meeting the score to recertify. So what do we do when there's not enough clarity or concrete information to support whether the outcome is present or not? So let me give you a little, because I've been reading the questions. This was, I believe, in reference to the questions about the mail being her preferred method of communication with her family. And I'll go back to that question, the preferred method of communication. And so there would be a return address that she could respond to. And I believe it was me who said, well, we don't know which family members, it's not all of her family members, with some of her family members who were taking advantage of her, not necessarily all of them. And so it was that's the statement I think that that led to this question, I believe.
Okay, and in scoring this, if you think if you know you don't have enough information or you had that additional question, you of course would do that at that time during the interview. And there are 2 questions that we can actually, that you kind of get free if you know that you don't have enough information to make that decision. And we both recognize that it would not be an issue for the scoring.
So, and that's a good point, Jill. I think the other thing, though, is to think about if you get in your head that someone's thinking, you know, that mail might be the way she prefers, then you would have asked those questions. you would have asked more questions when Jill does an interview, when I do an interview, when any of you do an interview, we don't all ask the exact same questions, and sometimes that a question triggers us to ask another question to get clarity about something. So if you were thinking, oh, she likes to get mail from her family, then you might have pursued that differently than Jill or I thought that she didn't want to get mail from her family, that's not her preferred way of contacting them.
And I think that's what, Kathy, and I agree, I think that's what we tried to put into this session, is that the mail was the way that generally, if the mail comes from a family member, they're requesting money. And so that's where it had been, so it's about all that family, and as we looked at that, it generally is that the mail from family is a request for money.
So that's what I would just, during your interviews, you have to ask the questions that make sense to you. So you would have gotten clarity about that. I have every confidence that you would have asked that question. Okay, so if you have more questions, or if you want to follow up more, please feel free to reach out. Jill and my email addresses are right here on the screen. I'm trying to close everything out. So please feel free to reach out to us, and we'll be happy to have more conversations. Thank you all very much. Have a great rest of the day, and we hope to see you on the call next month.
Indeed. Thanks again. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.